Ready?
Yep.
In 3, 2. Good morning and welcome to another edition of
U-News,
where you can be the reporter. For details, see the description below. And we will be giving out this gorgeous one-of-a-kind tumbler to the reporter of the month. That is the person that submits the most reports that we used. And we've got a good competition going right now this month, and we're coming into the final days, so who's going to be at the finish line? Excited to see. What are today's top stories?
Today's top stories: just say maybe to drugs. A man killed a teenager he believed was a Republican extremist. And which states are the friendliest states?
Ooh, that should be interesting. Can't wait to find out. Not the one we're in. Just kidding.
Okay, so to start off on a high note, which states has the friendliest people in the U.S.? There was an answer to this question on the forum Quora, and I thought it was very interesting, and it was written by a Harold Stansfield.
Ooh, a distant relative of mine, perhaps?
Perhaps, and I just want to read off what he has to say about the subject. He says, well, having lived in several different states and visited many others, my answer will surprise at least a few readers. Many areas are friendly. They will greet strangers with a smile. They will even chat at a bar or restaurant, but when you get up to leave, you will be immediately forgotten and likely talked about after you leave, and not in a pleasant way. I'm talking about you, friendly southern states, where bless his heart is not a compliment, where you could move in from away and live there for years and never ever be invited to join a barbecue at your next door neighbor's house. Somebody was a little bit upset about that happening to them, I think. I see it this way: there are nice places and there are kind places. Put them in a quadrant. Not nice, not kind. Kind, but not nice. Nice, but not kind. And both kind and nice. According to Harold, the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Dakotas, Wisconsin, northern Michigan is really, really nice, but not terribly kind. All the right things will be said, but if you need help, you're on your own. You got to be tough up there. The Northeast Seaboard, not very nice in general, and I think that they'll all agree with that. Not very nice and friendly. Not friendly, but kindness is all around you. In New England, you can be neighbors for years, never say more than 10 words a year. But when the blizzard comes, expect a knock on your door and to be asked how you're doing for firewood or propane. The Deep South, really, really nice as well, friendly. But if you're not from there and you're not one of them, then you're on your own. And the Western, I liked his answer for this one. Actually, both nice and kind, generally.
Is that the whole West Coast?
I guess that's the whole West Coast. He just said Western.
Interesting. So what does that mean exactly? They're nice and kind, so
that means that they will be friendly to you, and if you need help, they will help you. So what's your assessment? Do you agree with him somewhat, or?
I don't tend to agree with anybody that makes generalizations about any part of the country, because we've moved out to the Midwest, and Midwesterners have a very high opinion of themselves and each other. Midwesterners will tell you, oh yeah, I would never live anywhere else because here you get a flat tire and everyone will pull over and help you, and they have a very high opinion. It's been our experience in a little over a year here that it's hit or miss. There are a lot of really kind and nice Midwesterners, and there's a lot of people that aren't so kind. So my thought is there are nice people and mean people everywhere. I think no place in the country has a monopoly on kindness or niceness. That's my opinion. And nobody has a monopoly on meanness and nastiness. Like, for example, I lived in Southern California for many years. I brought her down there for 1 year after we were married. And everybody gives Californians a bad rap. But she noticed that when she signals in traffic, she will typically get let in within a car or two.
Yeah,
right?
I think that people just assume that the drivers down there are going to be jerks, and so they drive accordingly.
Yeah.
But if you assume otherwise, then you might be pleasantly surprised.
Right. And there's plenty of jerks down there too. So I just think it's just people's upbringing. And I don't think there's any corner of the country that is just overwhelmingly doing it better than any other place. I think there are places where they tend to be like the one I've noticed is we did some work making a film at a private school in Texas. And by far, most respectful young people I have ever seen. Shout out to Athens Christian School in Athens, Texas. Those kids were so stinking polite. And having been a former school teacher, the West Coast kids, not even close. The West Coast kids, as a teacher, if I'd pass them in the hall and say good morning, I was lucky if they would give me a grunt in return. Usually it was just kind of put your head down and walk by and pretend they didn't hear. But in Texas, every kid, when they passed you in the hall, would say, howdy, sir. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Or whatever the case may be.
It's just culture.
So, yeah, I will say the manners in Texas, second to none from what I've seen. But, yeah, I'm sure there's mean people there as well. Anyway, it's fun to think about and get people's opinion. It's interesting to talk about, like who's nice, who's mean, and whatnot.
We have something else. Speaking of Westerners,
yeah,
we have a story to cover about the West and their fight against drug use.
Yeah, which is a fight all across the country. But so our hometown of Roseburg, Oregon, where we're both from, we still get the local newspaper. The real newspaper from there, the Beacon, not the other one of which we will not speak. I highly recommend subscribing. You can go online. I think it's thebeacon.com probably. Anyway, you can look up the Beacon, Roseburg, Oregon. I would recommend everybody, no matter where you live in the country, get this paper. It is a phenomenal paper. It's from Roseburg, Oregon, but they actually only cover like a few local stories. It's pretty much national and international news. And from a good, solid, conservative perspective.
Yes, there's a lot of stories there that you won't hear of anywhere else. And it makes you happy, actually, when you're reading that newspaper because it gives you a lot of hope.
And it's very affordable, and they'll mail it anywhere. We're still getting it here in Kansas. And when we lived in our last town in Kansas, we had some neighbors that I shared this with them one time, and they loved it. So after we would read it, we would pass it off to them. They really enjoyed it. So I would recommend getting the Beacon no matter where you're at. It's a phenomenal news, like she said, that you're not going to see on the mainstream media. All right, so jumping into the story, they did a story that we want to cover. It's called Just Say Maybe. And what this is it actually shows, and we'll try to put this up on the screen, fentanyl warning. Okay, and so this is an actual ad that was put out by, is it the health department?
Yes.
Was it? Yeah, the
Public Health Department.
The Public Health Department in Douglas County, Oregon. Okay, and this is not a huge county. This it is size-wise, but population is very small. It's all small towns that are in here. So don't think like this is major cities or anything like that. Probably, the biggest town in Douglas County is the town we're from, Roseburg, Oregon. It's a town of under 30,000 people. Okay, so that's the biggest town, and their health department put out this fentanyl warning. They published this, and let me read it to you. This is I'm just reading straight from what they put out. It has little pictures of what fentanyl might look like, and then it says, fentanyl can be mixed with many drugs, pills, or powder. Fentanyl has no smell or taste and can put you at greater risk for overdose and death. Avoid overdose. It does not say avoid use, it says avoid overdose. Then here's the tips. Do not use alone. Start with a small amount. Fentanyl is a potent drug, 100 times stronger than other opioids. Watch and wait before the next person uses. So basically they're telling you, if you're going to use it with your buddy, why don't you let him go do it first, and then let's see if he doesn't die, And then if he doesn't die, hey, why don't you go ahead? Sorry, I'm getting a little worked up here. And then the next one says, have naloxone ready. You can get naloxone at HIV Alliance in Douglas County or your pharmacy. And then finally it ends by saying, an opioid overdose is an emergency. Call 911 right away.
And I wanted to add to that, along with the flyer for the poster, they put up bright, colorful pictures of fentanyl, making it appealing.
Looks like candy,
use.
right?
Yes.
Looks like, ooh, that's some yummy candy. So absolutely absurd that our county is saying, we know you're going to do this deadly drug, but try to have some precautions instead of saying, this stuff will kill you. Stay the heck away from it. And then the Beacon goes on to report, and they share some local opinions from different people in the area. And a lot of people are really upset about this, which is good that they're promoting this. It says here that one bust that occurred recently in California was enough to reportedly kill every person in the United States. So that's one bust in California. And imagine all the hundreds of loads that are coming in that they haven't caught. How they're not really trying to stop it. They're just trying to, maybe they've just thrown up their hands. I don't know. Maybe they just say, oh, we can't stop it. Let's just at least try to warn some people how to use it. But it's absolutely disgusting. They should
listen to people who were addicted, like Russell Brand. He said the only way to stop it is abstinence from it. You can't tell people just take a little bit and watch and wait and take it with naloxone. You can't do that. You're only welcoming death in these little children.
Yeah. So sad. Our country needs a lot of prayer on this whole war on drugs.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another part of the country that needs a lot of prayer is North Dakota. A deranged leftist in North Dakota has confessed to a hit-and-run homicide because he thought a Republican boy was an extremist. The victim is 18-year-old Kaylor Ellingson. The driver was Shannon Brandt, 41. Sadly, before Brandt mowed him down, Kaylor called his mom for help. Brandt called 911 to report that he had hit a pedestrian because he was threatening him. Brandt told state radio that the pedestrian was part of a Republican extremist group and that he was afraid they were coming to get him. After visiting the scene where the incident happened, deputies went to Brandt's house in Glenfield, North Dakota, which is about 12 minutes from the crash scene. Brandt admitted to consuming alcohol before the incident and stated he hit Ellingson with his car because he had a political argument with him. Brandt also admitted to deputies that he initially left the crash scene, then returned to call 911, but left again before deputies could arrive. Court documents say just before the crash, Ellingson called his mom and asked if they knew who Brandt was. She said yes and told her son that she was on her way to pick him up. A short time later, court documents say Ellingson called his mom again to say that he or they were chasing him. It was after the second call that Ellingson could not be reached again. Because Brandt has a drunk driving conviction, the Grand Forks Herald reported, he faces a minimum 10 years in prison and a maximum of 20. Prosecutors charged Brandt with vehicular homicide and leaving the scene of a fatal wreck. The judge ordered Brandt released on a $50,000 bond pending trial. Brandt's mindset and actions as he intentionally killed an 18-year-old he disagreed with politically display a wanton disregard for the welfare of others and represent a threat to the community. In light of this case, North Dakota courts would be justified in revisiting Rule 46 to include a more robust application of a public safety element into the bail bond evaluation process. Wow. If he doesn't pose a threat to the public, then who does?
Yeah, that's absolutely absurd. And you see the picture of this young man, and just a handsome young man full of life, just in the prime of his life, looks like a really friendly, fun guy you'd love to meet, and he's gone because of some idiot that didn't think he was of the right political persuasion. And it's absolutely absurd because they were always accusing Trump of inciting violence, and Biden specifically, put a whole, on a whole class of people, the MAGA Republicans. He just basically said that they were, I don't remember his words, but basically that they were like a scourge on society. And he says this, and then this happens, and it's like crickets in the media. I haven't heard one mention of how Joe Biden incited violence.
It's really just using Republicans as a scapegoat to the poor management of the U.S., the intentionally poor management of the U.S., and not to get any backlash from the Democrats who they still wish to control.
Well, to end, let's end on a positive note. Sorry about all the negative news today. We try to keep it on the positive side, but sometimes there's stories
very important
that have to be covered.
Yes.
And we try to bring you news that you probably haven't seen on the mainstream. So we try to dig up some special stories here. But I would like to end with a fun story. Today, where did we go?
We went to the zoo.
Which zoo did we go to?
We went to Rolling Hills Zoo.
Rolling Hills
Salina.
Zoo. Yeah, so fun. And just seeing all of God's amazing creations, like the giraffe. No matter how many times I see giraffes, they just blow my mind every time.
They're magnificent.
They're just such spectacular creatures, just unbelievable. And just to see them in person, it blows me away. I've seen giraffes so many times, but every time I'm just like, wow, what a beautiful, beautiful creature. What was your favorite creature that we saw today?
I was impressed with the anteater as well.
Oh, man, that anteater was something special. Yeah. Just that their head is just this big, long.
Yeah, and their tail was so fluffy.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Very cool. Just, yeah. So many fun little critters that we saw. And we saw a frog. Maybe we can put a picture. I don't want to make this too difficult for you. There was a frog so there was a sheet of glass, the window, and the whole frog was like stuck to it.
Hey, if you want to see pictures of these animals, go to our
Shorts feed.
Yeah, just go to our channel and look at the shorts.
Yeah,
we got them all up there.
So I've seen frogs where their feet are sticking to a window, but the whole front of his body was like his whole body was suction cupped to the window. It
looked like an alien suction
cup. It was so bizarre. And we saw some beautiful snakes with just immaculate coloring on them, that would probably kill us, but they're beautiful. Anyway, yeah, just so many awesome critters out there that God has made for us to enjoy. Thanks for joining us today. We wish you all a very happy week, and God bless.